Okay, so there's a lot of smack talk going around about the Stribog, about it being not reliable, and it's both true and not true, because if you don't know how it actually works, it's not going to work well for you. So my friend here is going to tell you what you need to do to get this to work flawlessly.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at one of these PCC, this is a delayed blowback. If you have a regular blowback, what happens is that you have a cartridge which is ignited, and the pressure in the barrel will blow the carrier group and the bolt back. And it's only the weight and the spring pressure that is the resisting force.
Yeah, it's a very reliable system, but it also makes it so you have a lot of more felt recoil, because it's a large bolt mass going back and forwards. This is not the case with the A3, because it has, as you say, a variant of the roller delayed blowback, and it has a much lighter bolt carrier because it doesn't need to. It has that mechanical lock.
Yeah.
So the thing with the rollers, or the lockers, as it's called in the Stribog.
So yeah, this is a roller delayed blowback, and this means that this breech is actually closed while the bullet is traveling through the barrel and my suppressor. And what happens is that after a certain time, the action will open up and the bolt and carrier group will be blown back as a regular blowback.
It is a mechanical lock, basically. Yeah. The rollers are a mechanical lock that has to be overcome through pressure, and then it unlocks from the barrel, and you can cycle the next round. It's the same system as the MP5, basically. It also has, this has one big roller that goes through up here, if I remember correctly, and the MP5 has rollers on the side of the bolt that locks into the receiver over there.
You can actually see that it is an A3, because here in the front there is the little time delay thing, and this is actually a time delay, and you can swap these parts. It's a 1 minute job, and then you can tune the gun and decide for how long should the breech be closed each time I fire.
And actually the MP5 has a similar system. So that, there's different sets of lockers you can put in here that determines the locking speed, basically. So if you fire really soft subsonic ammunition, you're going to need one piece. If you fire really hot plus P ammo or whatever, then you're going to need another piece for it to function and not beat itself to death and actually cycle reliably. It's actually the same thing with the MP5. The MP5 doesn't have different lockers. The MP5 has what's called a locking piece instead. It's a thing that goes into the, like an arrowhead thing that goes into the bolt, and the firing pin goes through it, and the arrow, the angle of the arrow on that MP5 determines how it locks the rollers on the side of it. And this is a similar thing. So both the MP5 and the Stribog functions similar in that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, they have lockers that's timed for different kinds of ammunition. So if you have the set of lockers, you're set for any kind of ammunition. But the one you get with the rifle should work with most ammunition, like 124 grains, regular loads.
Well, what I was going to say is that if you have a suppressor, then that means that you basically have a longer barrel, and you keep the pressure within the barrel for a longer time. So what you need to do is put in a locker that keeps the breech locked longer. So basically what it does, it lets the pressure bleed out until the pressure is light enough. And this enables you to have a lighter recoil spring and a lighter bolt and carrier group. And this means that you will have the same impulse from the round, but you will have less perceived recoil.
Yeah.
And you will have higher controllability with this gun than an A1, for example.
Yeah.
And what happens if I shoot subsonic rounds in this weapon and I remove the suppressor, the gun's gonna fail. It's just gonna stop. It's pure physics. There isn't enough energy for it to cycle the mechanism if I have the wrong locker.
Yeah.
Because I bleed out too much pressure. So when you see guys on YouTube that's like, oh, it fails, I'm like, yeah, of course it does. If you have too less oomph to pressure the mechanism, of course it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's pure physics.
And it's the same with basically all semi-autos. You're going to have enough energy in the system for it to function. And that's one drawback with semi-autos compared to bolt actions. You can have any suppressor and any barrel length or whatever on a bolt action. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have the cycler mechanism. So it's the timing of the system with a suppressor on it, for example, is very critical. That's why you want gas blocks that you can set the gas pressure on and stuff like that on semi-autos. So we got to get it right. It can be hard to get a semi-auto of any kind to cycle if you cannot change like the bolt weight on an AR-15 or the buffer weight in the buffer tube or whatever else you need to do, change springs or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, with every semi-auto that's going to be an issue. So what people have missed is that that's controlled by lockers on a rollerblade locking system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
And well, there are a few other things which are quirks, which are people are like, oh, we have failure to eject, we have failure to extract, etc. And what you have to understand with the semi-auto, there is something called an extractor. And that's supposed to pull the spent case out of the barrel.
Yeah.
And what then happens is it hits the ejector.
Yeah.
And basically throws the spent case out of the weapon. And these are wear and tear parts.
Yeah.
And this means if you have a problem with these parts, you just change them and the gun will work again. It's basics.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed on my MP5 is that if I run regular ammo suppressed, it's going to increase the pressure in the system and it's going to beat itself to death. And what goes first is on the bolt, there is the extractor on it, and that's held there by a little spring on the bolt, on the side of the bolt. And that spring is going to get worn down immediately if the pressure is too great in the system. And then it cannot hold the casing, and it's just going to drop it all over the place. And then you get failures to feed and failures to extract and all that. So you need to time the system correctly, otherwise everything else in the system is going to break down.
Yeah, and something you've seen a lot on YouTube. People are being real annoyed with this weapon. Just be like they get a failure to feed or failure to eject or something, and then they pull out the magazine. And what you see is that there is a round falling out of the magazine belt. And what you can say, what has been happening at that time, is that we have a problem with this weapon, and that is the magazines. They jam, and the followers are shit. There are new magazines with black followers, which I haven't received yet, which are supposedly much better. We'll see if they work. Currently, what you have to do to get your mags to work is to put a drop of oil on the follower. Otherwise, the follower will tilt, because it doesn't have an anti-tilt function. And it will jam, so the rounds will, due to increased friction, the rounds will not be pushed up inside the weapon fast enough to keep up with the action. Yeah. So what happens basically is the round is coming up and the action is coming forward, and it slams the top of the round and it pushes the round out of the magazine, but it doesn't pushes it into the breech. Yeah. So what happens is that you have an extra round jammed inside the magazine, and when you pull out your magazine, it falls down. That is a magazine failure. It is not the failure of the extractor or the ejector or the bolt or the carrier group or anything mechanical inside the weapon.
But usually that's one criticism that's actually true. They had some really shitty luck with the magazines. The first generation was shit, don't even look at them. Yeah. Second generation with the metal feed lips is better. They're making a third generation now. I heard some rumors even about a fourth generation.
Yeah, I heard that too, I've never seen them.
Yeah. But anyway, in the US they sell different lowers that you can put the Evo magazines, the CZ Scorpion Evo magazines. That's probably a really good solution if it was available here. Yeah. Then you can have an AR-15 control group in it as well. That would probably be awesome. They should have done that immediately actually. Yeah. But if they manage to fix the magazine situation and get really reliable magazines, there is nothing wrong with this firearm.
No, this particular firearm I've been shooting exclusively suppressed, and I've gone through about 1,500 rounds through it, and I haven't cleaned it yet. Yeah. And it just keeps on going, and I'm shooting the shittiest, worst ammunition that you can get in Europe. It's called MaxTech. I hate you guys. But MaxTech is the worst ammunition you can use. I've been just using this to basically torture test the weapon. Yeah. And it definitely can handle torture. I'm really, really impressed by reliability. As long as you understand why it works, it works.
Yeah. Let's go shoot it some.
Yeah. see, these are like all the Stribog mags. They're a pain to load.
Need a magazine loader for this.
Or you just apply hate to it.
Have you tried violence?
Yeah, exactly.
Load it with a hammer.
Yeah. I'm gonna load them with 25.
That's good enough.
Dying. So let's spend some ammunition.
That worked.
Yeah, always works. It is even dirtier.
That's a dirty mag. Okay.